High school anime isn't gonna cut it. I mean, yeah, it has its charms, but it doesn't have any charm to it. So obviously, you might be wondering why. Well, technically, I'm currently in high school. I say technically since high school doesn't exist in the UK. It's the last 2 years of secondary school plus sixth form/college, which is an American college, mind you. Just look it up for yourself. Now, while I haven't obviously lived through the whole experience, I'm only halfway through at this point, that doesn't mean I don't know what it's basically like for the most part. So, why is it when I'm watching something, as an escape from the monotony of my life, that I have to subject myself to watching what I'm going through myself? I know what it's like anyway, so why the heck should I care? Now, obviously, I'm not saying an anime is going to be bad because it has a high school setting, because the story, the characters, and the presentation is overall what's going to be the deciding factor for me in terms of my opinion on the work. However, for me, I'm not going to be really interested by the fact that it happens to be in a high school. Not to mention, as you can probably already tell if you watch anime yourself, the actual depiction of high school oftentimes seems quite idealized. Part of it might be because of the cultural divide between Japan and Britain/the West when it comes to typical school life, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see really many anime that capture the normalcy and monotony of that typical school life. And I get why they do that. Why would you want to bog a show down with those elements? But there are ways to weave it into a narrative, and even if you can't, it does bring down the believability of the setting, not to mention make it less interesting of a time period for the characters to be journeying through. Suffice it to say, the fact that a show takes place in a high school isn't going to draw me into its world. However, on the flip side, if there's a time period in which I'm very much interested in when the show tackles it, it's work life. It sounds odd, yeah, but it's true. As of writing this, because I don't know when I'll make it into its own video, I've never worked in any professional capacity whatsoever. I get the vague idea of what it's like, but really it's like a whole other world that I've never really been privy to. So when a show tackles this period in a person's life, I'm more interested off the bat with what the characters do in their world and more importantly in their life. Now, I haven't watched many from this period of life, well, specifically shows where it plays a larger role overall. So far it's only Shirobako, Agaretsuko, and Kobayashi, but I really do like all these three, though obviously not just because of their setting, but rather character, story, and the like. But I can't ignore how the setting does contribute to my enjoyment, because I find the exploration of this time interesting. Not to mention, if I can make a parallel, here often work is presented in a very realistic manner. Well, personally I wouldn't know, I'm just taking everyone else's word for it. They're not a 100% accurate representation of the life, but they do tend to show both sides of the coin. That specifically is present in all three shows, with it being the main focus of Agaretsuko and a secondary focus of Shirobako and Kobayashi. In case I haven't quite illustrated my point yet, I'd like to draw a comparison to Darling in the Franxx. Now, yes, Franxx obviously is a very different show to Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, though they both have reptile girls, so on second thought. However, one of the things that drew me into the show initially was the allure of learning how this dystopian world in which the characters inhabited worked, how it functioned, how its people's lives worked, and what it meant to the broader society of Darling in the Franxx setting. Now in the end, Franxx did shoot his world building in the foot partway through the series, but I can't necessarily ignore the fact that I had interest in the mystery of this world, and the fact that it did positively impact how I viewed the show, especially in its first half. I'm not going to say that a workplace is equivalent to a dystopian human future, unless you count capitalism as a dystopian future, but I am interested in how the working world for these jobs and the lives of the people who participate in function, and that allure can often lead me to wanting to know more, and that can be a reason why I'm drawn into a show. Now, I imagine the reason why there's more high school anime out there is actually really the opposite of why I'm drawn to work anime. From the perspective of an anime writer or director, a time where they were more carefree, worried less, and had less responsibilities in life, like when at school, would probably be something that they want to relive or rediscover and escape the monotony of their life, seeing it through what are probably huge rose-tinted glasses, which would explain the idealism. And high school is just the best choice in that regard, due to the fact that the characters can be the most mature they could, while still being at school, since they're almost adults. However, to that I would say these guys gotta wake up and face the world, man. There's more to life than high school, and so many facets of life to draw inspiration for, to make a well thought out good narrative. Getting back to work-related anime, I know I haven't experienced all the shows from the post-high school era, the good ones but I definitely know it's vastly outnumbered by the high school crap, and even good high school stuff. Which is a shame, really. We should have more anime focused on the life past high school, because I miss of that whole life thing, Not to mention, while high school has quite a rigid structure in how it works and functions, there are scopes with many different working environments that really, no two anime about work life would be the same. Well, they can, but you get my point. And I mean, when you get older, you do get more experience and nuanced outlook, which contributes to making deeper, more complex characters and character dynamics than some teen melodrama. I mean, just compare Retsuko to Miss Kobayashi, for example. Both are quite young, yeah, in their mid-20s, but with Kobayashi's extra years of working, she has a much more settled outlook on work and work life in general compared to Retsuko. These are different characters in the end, yeah, but they have differences due to their different levels of experience in life. And I mean, high school is what, 4 years? Pathetic. So I say, more work anime please, and also other aspects of adulting, that would be cool I guess.